Dr. Ladislav Agbesi, thank you for talking to Joy News. You're back home here in Accra after 2 decades of championing what many describe as a Pan-African push for foreign direct investment into Africa. Our conversation is timely because the continent itself is facing what some experts describe as a debt crisis or a sovereign debt crisis, which is going all across. It's not just the Ghanaian situation. Cote d'Ivoire is joining same. Other countries across the continent are facing a similar challenge based on what some say is partly due to the external forces of the COVID-19 and very recently the Russian-Ukraine war. Having come back home here in Ghana, how does it feel looking back 20 years ago when that push started for a Pan-African solution to Africa's problem and looking at where the continent is now, still facing a debt crisis?
Thank you very much. And it's always great to be at home. And I must say, there's one thing which is quite very interesting to be in Accra. I'm part of a very dynamic, very great team which have been part and parcel of the great changes in Ghana. We've started many things. We've done great things with the great government. But having said that, the Pan-African Business Forum is one of the greatest things which really changed the landscape of our thinking almost 18 years ago.
Right.
Was the arrival of the government of NPP around 2002, where we didn't know too much about debts, and the economy was very bad managed from the previous government. And the NPP government came with a very ambitious program. And they find themselves, like what is happening now, they find themselves confronted with inability to have access to funds on international market. And therefore, our organization, which is the Pan-African Business Forum, which is a coalition for the reinforcement of foreign direct investment, attracting more foreign direct investment for African countries to enable them to assert themselves in certain kind of institutions to give a better life to our people. You know very well that a government survives on the private sector.
Right. And
our vision has been always how we strengthen the private sector. And that's why we always regard and advise on the doing business, which is one of the components of the modeling of any development countries, when the World Bank is assessing how progress you are making over there. And that time, we've seen, we were worried as a young little intellectual that time, that where is this going to, what is going to happen? And we didn't know that Ghana is going to open the door of the great prosperity. Since many governments in Ghana, the Kufuor administration has been the greatest, who have brought the greatest prosperity to Africa, to Ghana, in the region. And what happened was that we started seeing the country went through a HIPIC, Millennium Challenge account, and you saw people like Asafo Malfo, Kosim Doom, and those kind of brain came in, and I remember very youngly Alan Chamache, who came later on and started running government businesses. And those people have crafted a very great program for Ghana. And having at the head of the foreign policy, Nana Addo, and these guys surprised the young people as we are. And they quickly meet the thresholds of the HIPIC. They qualify quickly. Millennium Challenge account, we celebrated it here. After Benin, they were the second country who won. And then the prosperity came in. But the 4 years, almost more than half of the years, 30 years, these guys they couldn't have access to money. So what we said, we launched that time what we call a special fund through the Pan-African Business Forum. We realized that a government with such a great vision for his people, ambition, and a very smart president of Kufuor, who came in with put a greater teams in place, we need to assist him. It's like Kennedy have said, don't ask what your government can do for you, ask for what you can do for your government. So we came that time with a special fund. We said, now that our government cannot borrow more on the international market, we are launching a special fund locally here. And I presented to that time the Minister of Communication, I can't remember his name, and I have a discussion with him. We said, all the business people in Ghana, we want you to put 3% of your revenue to that special fund to support the government for his ambitious vision for Ghana, to support Ghana. We launched it at Labadi Beach here.
And where we are today.
Yeah, where we are today. We launched it here. We call on everybody. And to be surprised, the first country who called my office at Cantonment was two embassy call, was a China embassy and Japan embassy. And the office of the president said, we are grateful for your idea. We will run it. We admire you. So, but this have give us a kind of vision that we can do it for the whole continent. That's how we came up with the idea of $1 for each citizen to contribute to a special fund of 500 billion. I'm sure you've seen it, which I launched. So we believe that Pan-African Business Forum, our vision has been always that we look positive about our continent. We don't want to look at any negativity. We see a prospect, a continent with, which is going to reach by 2060. We are going to reach 2 billion population, and our GDP is going to be 29.9 trillion ahead of Europe and America. And we have 450 million arable land, which is by the standard of the United Nations, the requirement to feed the world is 72 million arable land. And if you look at the infrastructure thresholds for us, which is for Africa today is 850 billion US dollars. We need to start focusing on what is basic. We have short term, medium term, and long term. That's how we started looking at, there was a program through the NEPAD, which ran by Thabo Mbeki at that time, which was very interesting for us as young people. It's called the peer review mechanism. That peer review mechanism, through that one, you see, the peer review mechanism is that what other countries are doing in the continent, which is good, successful, and other can emulate on it. And we try to do it. We don't show ourselves. We support it. And Ghana is doing certain kind of, you know, the mining law, the indigenization of some of the local participation is our job. But we don't come in front to show that.
So the forum has been at the background, working and supporting all the actors. And then you, of course, recount how the likes of Dr. Agbesi, Misata, and the likes within the National Democratic Congress consolidated what you started building in 2002. What role, what sort of influence did he have on you as an individual? Dr. Misata, as you were talking about. You worked with him partly.
For me, Dr. Misata, I knew him as a great man when I was working at the Maasai Developers. And I happen to, who I am today because of Edward Annan, because I spent 5 years working in Maasai Developers. And we were very, if you understand Maasai Developers with Edward Annan, it was, there's a motto for us is that we separate the best, the boys from the men. Yeah, so, and it was very well structured, and we work very extensively with discipline, and is a man I've seen which is not corrupt, very honest, transparent, and he put a team in place when you look at Edward Annan. And in that line you met Mr. Misata and many other people, I don't want to mention names, and we work with them, and dedication. You see us from the Supply Commission, Cocoa Board, GPHA, everywhere, our report every day. And Edward Annan was not just like a chairman of the company. He was like one of us. And when I look at that moment, I've realized that there's something great we can do for ourselves. And before I saw Mr. Atta becoming the vice president, I only knew that why not have people like him as a president? You see, these are great people. As a small boy, I've had the opportunity to work with them. And I look at them as a great people, very disciplined, organized, united, and always put Ghana first. And if you look at Edward Annan, I always said, if you are a government in Ghana, if I would advise anybody, put him in the nest of your office.
And make sure he's there.
He's there.
You're lobbying for him, clearly.
Have tea with him every morning and tell him, don't ask him to do anything, but just have tea with him. He is, for me, for having worked with him for many years, we learn so many things, and it has carried some of us to where we are today.
Okay, so let's now talk about the crisis which is facing the continent. Now again is the time to bring to bear the expertise and the wide range of network you have at the Pan-African Business Forum. What's been your proposal, or say the recommendations you're making about how Africa can go about this new phase or wave of crisis that it is facing?
You see, I thank you very much for such brilliant questions. And you see, Africa, we are missing a point. We are all confused with emotional issue of our past, condemning the Western. Every day we try to blame the Western. How long are we going to continue blaming the Western? In our new generation, our new vision, and like I discussed with President Biden administration, I spoke to Putin. I said, we are African. We don't want to blame anybody, but we want to work with you guys on our term, but let us start building our continent. The rhetoric since 1960 till today, what has this changed? We saw few changes. But we cannot work in the isolation. And I was in France last year. I was having conferences with all our brothers. I said, you come to Europe, you enjoy their social security, healthcare, and transportation free. And you stay here, you criticize them. What's wrong with you? Come back, we have a land. Come back. I'm just giving you a context, I give you the context, what I want to say.
Yes, precisely.
What is very critical for us today, we don't have any institutions. We don't own any institutions. IMF, World Bank, UNDP, you can name them, ICC, and people dream there can never be any currency. It can happen in our plan in 50 years, my grandchildren. We need to start cooperating with these institutions. I'll tell you the reason why. There's something called RDS. For those who knows what I mean, RDS is called the right of drawing system. The only person who controls that RDS in the world is America. It's for the dollar. And that's why if there's a day when the dollar is on holidays, no transaction in the world happen on the dollar. How come you call yourself BRICS or China? You want to create how the currency? It's not going to work. It will only affect us emerging. We want to be emerging economy. It will slow our growth as an African. We don't want to be part of that at the moment.
But how is that accurate when, of course, you have two or perhaps three of the most powerful economies participating in the BRICS arrangement? The belief is that if trading is being done by that special bloc of countries, we'll begin to see a rapid change in how the dollarization of many economies, including that of Ghana, would change.
You know, I was in China, and I couldn't. I make a recommendation to. I will not mention the name. The officials of South Africa, when we were having the summit of BRICS in China, And I said, the story of creating a special bank is not going to work. I hope my senior people, they're well learned, I'm not too smart like them, will be agree with me that there can never be a serious currency to survive for 30 days if it's not part and parcel of RDS of United States, the dollar.
Really?
If the dollar decided that the euro its value is half, you can't, the rest is a joke.
Why are you so positive about the US dollar?
I'm positive because I want to see Africa to do the right thing. Because I like prospects. I like the better life for myself. And I want to see my people to have a basic service.
These are controversial points you're raising.
Yes.
And many will contend, particularly knowing that you say you represent the Pan-African Business Forum. Nkrumah's idea back in '63 was for the continent to have the same currency, have a Pan-African currency that will compete with the rest of the world.
I'm not saying we should have currency.
Yeah, precisely. The idea is to be self-sufficient through weaning ourselves of the fiat system of the US dollar.
But what did
but you're
Nkrumah
not
achieve
optimistic about that.
All the people who mentioned the name of Nkrumah, have they achieved anything? Zero. We need to rechange the paradigms of our thinking. Because since 1960, everybody, all the Communist Party, the last one who collapsed is South Africa ANC. Soon. If
they're still in power, by the way. They're still controlling South Africa, by the way.
Because we need to change the thinking. You cannot continue having the same thinking 100 years ago, 80 years ago. We need to have a different kind of head. You see, look at Singapore. Look at Sweden. You need to start building your GDP to 100 billion. So that then you can have something to negotiate. You don't have nothing to negotiate.
Is it the case that you have your own definition of what Pan-Africanism should be
my definition for the Pan-African, for me, is to create wealth for our people. I don't want to get involved with emotional, political issues.
Why describe that as emotional, for instance?
Emotional because
there's been that push, and you've seen that over the years. For instance, we've heard in recent times from some Pan-Africanists, including the likes of Professor Lumumba, who's criticized, for instance, the international economy.
They killed them.
Oh, well, that's your opinion on that. But you've heard their arguments point out how unfair the world appears to be towards the global south.
I want my grandchild. You know, I was talking to my son, Mahaba, Alia, Talia, and Soleil. I told them, learn to be part of great people. Don't push them away. Even if you have to be cheated. If people know my life at Masai, I was like a houseboy for them. But I don't know I can employ them today, unfortunately. But you have to have a strategy. Africa, what do we have? The African Union, other people build it for us. We have infrastructure issue, 850 billion. How do we get that money? Who is going to invest on that? Ukraine, the money which is spent in Ukraine is 6 times what is spent in the Sahel since 20 years.
Right.
Why? I need for my continent money. I don't want to talk about, but when we get to a point where institutions, resources are intertwined and get to some level of 29, even 20 billion, people start saying that my decision counts. But when you are not there, you don't have even defense force. You cannot go and defend your own country. Other people will come and defend it. Why do you want to talk about look at Cuba. Cuba was ahead of China and Russia. The moment they went too much emotional, their buildings are there since 120 years. Still the same thing.
And you believe there's no development?
There's no development.
But if the private sector is the way to go, it's still not a developed sector in many of the African countries. The capital is not there.
Yes, but that's why you see there is a shift. You know, if you look at let us say Ghana, there's a lot of shifts. Ghana was not the same 20 years ago, neither 10 years ago. We have a prominent president from Kufuor to Mills,
Right.
to John. I always call John the good caretaker. Because
Oh, really? That's your description of it?
of course, because you see the great work of Kufuor, because I call the government of Kufuor the government of prosperity. They came in and moved us away from HIPIC and the Millennium Challenge account. The money come, who are the people who's going to use it? He's gone. Somebody, because he was his second term. Who are the people who will look after it? If you have bad children, they will not look after it very well. But you have a good kids, like John Mahama,
Right.
who came in, kept it. Unlike what you are seeing with the government of Nana Addo.
Right.
They are doing some great job
Right.
at the moment. They went through all the difficult crises, from HIPIC to Ukraine, and today, after the COVID, the best performing African countries, Ghana is leading. But when you come to the radio station in Ghana, you hear different kind of...
Yeah, obviously because of the concerns we have as a people. It's good to reflect their concerns, isn't it?
It is okay, because that is the job of the government. But
Right.
for us, we are proud of the great work they are doing, because that's what I was saying the other day, that I think so far we have the best team of at the treasury in Ghana.
Okay.
And looking after it's not easy, because when you come to power, you don't expect the eventualities. You don't expect crisis. Crisis meets you on the way. And that's what the government of Nana Addo. But if you look at the world today, who is the most regarded, respected in Africa internationally?
Well, you tell me.
It's Nana.
Really?
Of course. The crisis and everything, why he's always, I feel pity sometimes. He's every meeting. That's a sign of trust. That's the sign of trust. You cannot have it anywhere. From Washington to Paris to even where Ivory Coast need to stand, is Nana there. You understand? We're looking at the prospect of great leaders in our continent, which will emulate us when we are in front of the donor agencies, investors. We can sell something to them.
And that's where a lot of Pan-Africanists will disagree with you. The fact that we go cap in hand, begging these nations around the world for aid when Africa is resource rich.
I need to make a correction. We in Pan-African business, we don't believe in aid. But when they meet the people, we're talking about investment. Have a terms. Participation in our economy. Does not mean that we ask you to give us...
yeah, but you're still pleading for the money, whichever
No,
way.
but they don't have the money. They are more smarter than China and the other places. They put every two institutions, which is called IMF and the World Bank. It's their money there. They invest in us.
Right.
You understand me?
Yeah.
But they are doing business with us. That's why they squeeze us. What our governments are doing, there's no other thing. We are not begging. You cannot. These are some of the problems we have. People say, I don't want IMF. And Nigeria, of all people, pay all the money to the World Bank. I'm paying my debt. Who are you pleasing? Who are you pleasing? A private sector is not supposed to overexpose, but government can be overexposed. You need to borrow. You see what is happening in America yesterday? The opposition set up a debt limit for the government.
Right.
What they will kill Biden. He cannot expand his provision. He cannot invest. He cannot borrow more
So
money.
what you're saying is borrowing is okay?
For the government, of course.
But these are strange ideas that we're not used to here in our part of the world. And many will take you on for putting out these
It depends on the team you have around you, because private sector, in the banking sector, we say you are overexposed. We cannot borrow you more money. But as a government, if you have, that's why I designed what we call intermediary revenue for African countries. What I call intermediary revenue is you create something which is out of the fiscals, which compensates what can help you to borrow more money. You see, if, for instance, we are doing there's a project, Khartoum to Accra,
Right.
538 kilometers of railways. Okay. If you integrate that regional project, you bring how do you call it, the technical partners, you put the term of references to a tender, bring everybody around on it. You can peg on that one to borrow more money. You can put, you have to be creative. That's why the World Bank, after they discuss with the people, they say you must be innovative. Innovative means that you need to create your own different, out of the box, your different kind of revenue. And Ghana has been doing it. That's why your tax revenue creates many kind of ideas, and the people see it affects sometimes the inflation. No, nevertheless, but they have to quench it in a different ways. It's about people. And I think the experience Ghana, I know some countries, I know 7 countries, they visited Ghana to learn from what Ghana is doing. I don't want to mention them for the purpose of the integrity of those countries. It means there's something great happening in Africa. We need to have a different kind of vision for our continent. We need to align ourselves, collaborate, build a strong economy. You understand me? And because how do we build strong economy when we cannot together have peace? The first thing we need to do, there are few things we need to do. First one, education. Okay. Education is key. The healthcare for our people. Basic services, infrastructure, and the most important, energy. You see, look at all the big economy. Right. The energy. Some country, I don't want to mention their name, they couldn't sustain after the COVID. They are still, but Ghana have a serious debt in the energy sector, but they still manage electricity for all of you. Some countries, there's no electricity. And do you say that they are not doing something?
I see. So all you're concerned about is for prosperity. Prosperity for Africa, whether it's coming from the east or west.
Prosperity. If
that's all you want.
Africa is the most beautiful girl. Everybody must come and offer us the best proposition. That's why I always encourage Africans, let us don't take the sides on the Ukraine issues. Why? I was speaking the other day at a summit in Russia. Right. I told them, I said, listen, some of African countries follow you guys. In the time of prosperity for the Western, we said revolution. You collapse, we collapse with you. Okay. But when your time of prosperity came in, you shifted your mind to European. You put 800 billion to them. Today, you have a problem, they throw you away. We are the only one continue supporting you. What did you do for us? You didn't do anything for us. You couldn't come to us. Can you show me any great investment of Russia in Africa? No. By the way, I'm the one who opened the embassy of Belarus here in Ghana. Right. I came with them. My name is Ladislav because we were born in the revolution time. But we still have to tell them, my friend, if you want Africa, show us your capability. Let us not talk. We told the Americans, why do you want us in your crisis in Ukraine? When you were doing the First World War, you took all our people. They went to you, you took the veteran, they fought for you. Right. They died, some of them stay. When you were solving the problem, you didn't put us inside. Second World War, you came more to take from Senegal, from everywhere. You took all our valid young men, they leave their families, they went there. When you are doing the Marshall Plan, we were not part of it.
It was to Europe?
To Europe, yes.
Okay.
It was crafted by the Americans. That's blessing, by the way. Yeah. You couldn't put us part of this program. Yeah. Nowhere. Worst part of it is that you divided our continent. And everybody took part of shares in our continent. Right. Sicknesses came to our continent. Malaria, HIV, AIDS, all these things. We saw one person who came in Bush, came and did a great job. So far, most of the... but what did we gain? There was not really a plan for us. Ebola came. What did you do? Small. Obama did something small. When COVID came in, many prospects, many plans. Were we part of it? You give us a DTS, special right of drawing.
Yes.
For few countries. What has it changed in the life of our people? Not so much. Why, when you have your problem, why do you want to put us part of it?
So your advice to African leaders is that we win ourselves from taking sides in this whole war?
We need to see what is going to benefit us. I'll give you one example, what a Pan-African business is.
Right.
There's an opportunity for us. We are looking at a pipeline from West Africa through Mauritania to Europe, to 400 kilometers from Mauritania to Spain, where the West African people, through their gas, to supply, because there's alternative. Today, America is supplying the gas to Europe, and we can supply it. We need to invest on it. We need to take advantage of this crisis. We need to discuss, we need to put Africa first, not emotion first. Because the new generation which I'm looking at, I want to see a prospect to our continent. A continent where we create a billionaires. I saw a report. In the next 50 years, Africa is going to produce 112 billionaires. Do you think we will get them by following left and right? We need to be decisive. We need to have a strong leaders. We need to put a program in place. We need to follow we need to work with this institution and start thinking in the next 7 years, how do we have our own institutions?
Yeah, but part of the solution for some is for us to carry out the intra-Africa trade regime that we're pushing. For instance, through the Continental Free Trade Area.
Definitely.
And I was engaging the Secretary General, Wankilimene, a couple of days ago.
Yes, that's critical.
His position is that debt is not the way out. Let's trade amongst ourselves.
Yes.
You don't believe in that as well?
Of course, I believe in that, because it was 11 years ago, it was almost 10%, but now we are in 16%.
16, yes.
16
Intra-African
trade.
Yes.
It means there is kind of a shift into it. But we can increase it through investment into infrastructure, a new reform. It's like even some of the tenders, do you understand me?
Right.
We need not to allow the foreign participants. We have to put the first gap that when we are doing a tender, first of all, this is the first layout. Ghanaians might win first. If the Ghanaian cannot do it, we go to the regional.
Right.
So a company from West Africa. If he cannot do it, before we go to the international, African, before we go international. So that the new reform, like Pan-African Business Forum we are talking about, we integrate those foreign participants to build transfer of skill with our people.
But that will be intrusion again, once more giving the way to companies that are bigger, that have the capital to come and take advantage of a policy that's supposed to be benefiting.
You are right, but the reason why I'm saying that is that we integrate them, we have a local participation, because if we don't have, if we want to see only foreign companies to come and build our economy, they need to have somebody like you, myself, the youth participate in those businesses like we are doing in South Africa. That's what's called the peer review mechanism. We want local indigenous business. If you are taking a project of 4 billion, we should have 20% of Ghanaians participate into it. You can't give all to them. And then we create the wealth then. If you are building a hospital from a company, he must show us 30% of his company who are local Ghanaians part of it. You cannot give them that. So we build it from that, like Malaysia did. Malaysia did it, and some Singapore did it. You need to integrate a local participation. Business people to participate in the economy. So that's how the inter-trade is going to grow. It's if we are buying cement, and the people still put our fiscal money to buy cement from China, where we have Dangote. If Dangote wants to supply, he must have a partner in Ghana here, where he can coalesce with him, and so that they can buy from here. This is some of the things we talk as a reforming and keeping the wealth
here in
within
Africa.
In Africa, regional, and boost our GDP. And by doing all this things, the critical part is that conflict, to avoid conflict. Peace and stability are key to that. But our people need to look at it in a different ways. Our aim is the prosperity by 2060. prosperity for...
In line with basically what the African Union has been targeting as well.
Yes, but it's quite very, very important for us to get to that level.
Doc, we need to go, but what would be your message to African governments from the position or perspective of the Pan-African Business Forum? What would you want them to hold on to as a priority?
As a priority for us is, the first thing is that we want the stability of this continent. It's key. Stability is one of the, because when you talk about a country of investment continent, regional risk, country risk, it's stability.
Right.
So this is the first thing we always try to use dialogue to solve any conflict in our midst. And the other thing is that how we alleviate poverty. Poverty can be alleviated through education. Education is key, very, very key to us. And let us build our regional. When we make our regional, our region very strong, we can integrate it on the African level. Because we cannot wake up one day and say, one Africa. Why ECOWAS is strong and East Africa is weak, North Africa, we need to integrate it.
Right.
This is what we need to look at here. But by the way, the other thing which is critical for me, we in Pan-Africa Business Forum, we don't believe in small countries. We want them to disappear. Benin, Lesotho, Niger, those little countries, they will never prosper. Never. If we want to get to the next level of our growth, certain small countries.
You feel we should tear down the borders and
completely
merge as a
even
continent?
the big countries must swallow them. Right. You understand me? What do you want to do with Lesotho, Malawi, and you need to.
That's offensive to people who
owe
allegiance to these countries.
Know. I spoke about it, and we need to stop. I don't mind when I'm in Benin to be a governor of Benin.
Right.
President is a title, but it affects, it enhances the growth of the people in the small countries because they can't have access to. There's never been anybody who will be a billionaire in dollars in Benin, unless he's a crook. Because your GDP does not allow you. That's why Ghana did what we call the rebase. Right. Nigeria did the rebase. You must remember that after Nigeria did their rebase the first time, a couple of years ago, a few months later, Dangote became the first billionaire. You know why? He cannot borrow money. Before he used to go to South Africa to borrow money. Because when you rebase the economy, the capital market is available to you to integrate you in you. So Dangote doesn't need to go anywhere. When he put his terms of reference on the market, everybody just come. And he can raise already half or 1/3 of the money in Nigeria. Right. You understand me? Right. And then everything changed. You cannot have a 9 billion and still build wealth. No, you integrate it. And then we can have a bigger future for our continent.
Dr. Ladislav Agbesi, it's been wonderful talking to you. I'm sure that we'll interact again sometime soon. Thank you for talking.
It's always a pleasure, and thank you very much for coming, and it has been always a pleasure.
You always need to come back to Accra.
Thank you.
Thank you.